Did you know that over 2.5 million blog posts are published every day? That's a staggering amount of content flooding the internet. Yet, many people feel that every good idea has already been taken. If you're worried about finding something original, you're not alone. A survey by the Creative Group revealed that 85% of creative professionals struggle to come up with fresh ideas. But here's the kicker. Creativity isn't about inventing something entirely new. It's about how you can twist, mix, and reshape existing ideas. Even great minds like Albert Einstein and Steve Jobs didn't create in a vacuum. They borrowed, combined, and reimagined what was already out there. In this video, we'll explore how to navigate the crowded landscape of ideas and uncover your unique creative voice. You'll learn strategies like remixing existing concepts, leveraging constraints, and embracing your quirks. Plus, we'll dive into how you can let your thoughts mature and borrow genius from different fields. Get ready to break down the walls of traditional thinking and discover that originality is not just possible, it's waiting for you to find it. Let's dive into the journey of unlocking your creativity. Chapter 1. The Remix Revolution. How to steal like an artist's creativity doesn't always mean inventing something from scratch. In fact, some of the most creative minds in history were masters at remixing existing ideas. Think of how Steve Jobs described creativity. Creativity is just connecting things. You don't have to reinvent the wheel to be original. Instead, try taking what's already out there and putting your own spin on it. Take music as an example. Modern hip-hop producers often sample tracks from decades ago and breathe new life into them. Kanye West's Stronger samples Daft Punk's Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, yet feels entirely new. This process of borrowing, reshaping, and adding personal flair is the heart of the remix revolution. But it's not just about copying. In his book, Steal Like an Artist, Austin Kleon points out that every idea is influenced by something else. Picasso once said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." The key is to transform what you borrow into something that feels fresh and unique to you. This approach can take off pressure. Instead of worrying about finding that one original idea, focus on combining elements from your inspirations. How can you blend a bit of this, a bit of that, and make it something entirely yours? Creativity becomes a lot easier when you give yourself permission to build on what already exists. Did you know even Shakespeare borrowed most of his plots from existing stories? Romeo and Juliet was based on a poem by Arthur Brooke, yet Shakespeare's version became the more iconic one. The point is, even the most celebrated creators took from others, and that's completely okay. To remix effectively, immerse yourself in various sources. Listen to music outside your usual genre, read books in new fields, or watch films from other cultures. The more ideas you collect, the better material you'll have to remix into something that's entirely your own. Chapter 2. Constraints. Your secret weapon to think outside the box. It may seem counterintuitive, but sometimes, creativity thrives when you're forced into a corner. Constraints, whether time, resources, or limitations, can actually spark some of the best ideas. Dr. Seuss, for instance, wrote Green Eggs and Ham after a bet that he couldn't write a book with fewer than 50 unique words. And yet, it's one of his most iconic works. We often think of creativity as something that requires total freedom. But when you're given too much freedom, you can get lost in all the options. Constraints give you a framework. They force you to make decisions. They create focus. In fact, research by the Journal of Consumer Research found that people actually come up with more creative solutions when faced with constraints. Whether it's a deadline or limited budget, these boundaries push you to think of new ways to get things done. Think about filmmakers who had to work with low budgets but ended up creating cult classics. The famous horror film Blair Witch Project was made for less than $100,000 and grossed nearly $250 million. It's a perfect example of how working within tight constraints can produce something incredibly innovative. Constraints also make you more resourceful. If you can't spend money on expensive equipment, how can you use what's available? Some of the best creative ideas come when you're forced to think outside the box. A quote by Frank Lloyd Wright sums it up well. man built most nobly when limitations were at their greatest. To start using constraints to your advantage, set artificial limits on your creative projects. Give yourself less time than you think you need, limit your materials, or challenge yourself to work with restrictions. You'll be surprised how this actually makes your creativity grow. Chapter 3. Tapping into the weird. Embrace your inner oddball. Here's the truth. The weirdest ideas are often the best ones. When it comes to creativity, embracing what makes you different is key. Think about some of the most innovative companies today, brands like Apple or Tesla. They didn't play it safe. They leaned into their weirdness. Elon Musk, for example, once pitched the idea of a reusable rocket. Most people thought it was a bizarre or impossible concept. Yet, SpaceX has now successfully landed reusable rockets multiple times, revolutionizing space travel. Research backs this up too. Studies by Harvard Business Review show that people who embrace unconventional thinking tend to be more innovative. Being different allows you to see things from perspectives others may miss. This makes your ideas stand out in a world where most people are following the same rules. We often avoid the weird because we're afraid of being judged. But remember, some of the most iconic inventions started as strange, even laughable ideas. The Wright brothers were told humans would never fly. And yet, they became pioneers of aviation by refusing to dismiss their odd idea. In creativity, it's crucial to let go of the fear of being different. Think about Lady Gaga. Her music and style are celebrated precisely because she embraces her eccentricity. Her uniqueness is her superpower. To tap into your weirdness, start by leaning into the things that make you feel odd or different. What quirky hobbies do you have? What strange connections do you notice that others don't? Your weird ideas may be just the thing that makes your creativity shine. In a world that often values conformity, creativity blossoms when you allow yourself to be unapologetically unique. So, the next time you come up with an idea that feels a little offbeat, don't shy away from it. That might just be where your most original work lies. If you're enjoying this content and want to dive deeper into creativity, consider subscribing for more insights and strategies. Chapter 4. Creativity in reverse. Break it to make it. Sometimes, to create something new, you need to start by breaking things down. This idea of creative destruction is powerful. Instead of building from the ground up, why not take an existing idea, deconstruct it, and rebuild it in a totally new way? This approach can lead to unexpected breakthroughs. Look at Google. Their famous search algorithm wasn't created by building from scratch, it was based on deconstructing academic citations and applying them to the internet. They took something that already existed in a different context and flipped it. When you reverse the traditional approach, you get new perspectives. For example, the founder of IKEA, Ingvar Kamprad, completely reinvented the furniture industry. Instead of building and selling pre-assembled furniture like everyone else, he flipped the process, selling flat-packed furniture that customers would assemble themselves. It was a simple tweak, but it changed the game. Breaking things apart also helps you spot what isn't working. Sometimes we get so caught up in tradition that we miss the obvious flaws. By pulling things apart, you can see the gaps and limitations, then come up with smarter solutions. This is what Apple did when they reinvented the phone, stripping away unnecessary buttons and adding a touchscreen interface. An interesting study published in Scientific American found that people are more creative when they engage in breaking and fixing activities, like puzzles or coding. When you train yourself to break things down and solve problems, your brain gets better at finding unique solutions. To practice this, take something you use every day, a product, a process, or even an idea, and reverse it. Ask yourself, how could this be done differently? What would happen if I removed a key element? You may find that by breaking it down, you uncover entirely new ways of thinking about it. Chapter 5. The Idea Incubator. How to let your thoughts mature. We live in a fast-paced world, but sometimes, creativity needs time to breathe. Just like planting a seed, ideas often need time to grow. Rushing them can lead to half-baked concepts. That's why it's important to create your own idea incubator, a mental space where your thoughts can slowly develop. Many brilliant creators let their ideas simmer. Take J.K. Rowling, for instance. She spent 5 years thinking about the Harry Potter universe before even writing the first book. She allowed the world to evolve in her mind, adding depth and richness that made the story unforgettable. Research shows that letting ideas sit can actually improve creativity. A study by the Journal of Creative Behavior found that people who allowed their ideas to incubate over time came up with more original solutions than those who rushed. The brain needs downtime to connect the dots in the background, even when you're not actively thinking about it. Some of history's greatest breakthroughs came after long periods of incubation. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity wasn't an overnight revelation. It took him over 10 years to develop the idea fully. The key is patience, allowing your ideas to mature without pressure. To cultivate this, don't feel like you need to act on every idea right away. Keep a journal or voice notes where you can jot down thoughts as they come. Then, revisit them after a few days or even weeks. You'll often find that time gives you clarity and helps the idea evolve in ways you wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Also, take breaks. Step away from your work and engage in unrelated activities. Studies by Stanford University show that walking, for example, can boost creative thinking by up to 60%. The movement helps your brain process ideas in the background, giving them space to develop naturally. If you found these strategies helpful, subscribe to stay updated on more creative insights and tips.